Hey everybody, welcome to the Art of Creation show number 9 with Dr. Lisa Cooney. So glad to have her on the show. I'm your host, Frank Friedella, alongside my co-hosts, Rebecca Boswell. Rebecca, say hi.
Hey guys, excited to have you here and super excited to have Dr. Lisa Cooney with us today. Yeah. Oops.
Oh, is that you?
Are you hearing that? Yeah, I'm getting it like back.
Who's got that in the background?
Maybe. I had another window going. Okay, I think here we are. Got it.
Dr. Lisa Cooney, thanks so much for joining us. I'm just so glad to have you on the show.
Oh, you guys are so kind. Thank you so much for inviting me, Melissa and Frank, and I'm so glad to be here. I wonder what we're going to create today, what joy and fun we're going to have.
Yeah, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, Rebecca, I actually had the tremendous opportunity to interview Dr. Lisa Cooney for some videos that I shot for her in Denver recently. And, prior to that, we'd met before and I'd seen her around and I was kind of peripherally aware of the work that she did. But getting to honestly sit there for like an hour and talk to her was kind of, I had one of those moments, right? Like, just like, holy cow, you're awesome. Yeah. So this is like a huge get for me to have you here on the show. And all of a sudden I'm talking like William Shatner. Maybe you can tell me why.
So, why not?
So the thing that I'm super excited to talk to you about is this roar thing. Can you explain to us what roar is and where you came up with the idea?
Sure. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for all the kind words that you said. And yeah, I had such a great time shooting the videos with you, but we can talk more about that in a little bit. So ROAR actually stands for your radically orgasmically alive reality. And frankly, basically it's a 2-day elective class that is approved through Access Consciousness, specialty class. And I wanted to do a class about moving beyond abuse, moving beyond our limitations, moving beyond constrictions. And I didn't want to name the class with the word abuse in it because I had done that before. And most people said, if they had abuse, they said they had dealt with it and they never want to basically look at it again, even though they said, by saying I dealt with it means that I never want to look at it again, which I get. And if there's abuse in a title of a class, most people look at it and be like, oh, no, thank you. I don't want to look at that. And also there's a density and a heaviness just to the word abuse. So why would anybody kind of want to go to a class like that? So I thought those are 3 really good reasons to think about, perceiving the energy of a different title.
Sure, it's
and
like
so I created
just in the title of anything. Like no one wants to go there. That's just
right. And to this day I'm like, really, this is really what my life's living mission is to do, eradicate and eliminate abuse off this planet. Well, yeah, I think I can do it, but how do I make it fun? How do I make it light when there's so much density and mass and heaviness and projections and expectations and what the psychological nomenclature says about that the best you can do is survive, but never thrive, or only thrive if you're lucky. I was like, no, I don't want that. I want something that's like, bam. So that's what I created. I created a BAM, your radically orgasmically alive reality, with this class called Embrace Your Roar, and with my business, which is called Live Your Roar. And long story short, I just figured I gave so much of my life, the first 2.5 decades of my life, over to abuse. And then the subsequent, tumultuous 20s, living from that landscape and through the abuse colored glasses, if you will, that I decided at some point, a couple of years ago, that no matter what had occurred to my body or who had entered what orifice, that they never got me. And I am the energy of living your roar, right? Embracing your roar, your radically orgasmically alive reality. And I wanted to put that orgasmic piece back in this whole thing about moving beyond abuse, constrictions, and limitations, the sexualness, the passion for life, the enjoyment of a strawberry, the smell of a lotus, just all of that stuff. And I realized I'd lived so starved because I was abused. And that was a choice that I unchose. And then this whole other area, just by asking the questions, moving from an abuse topic class to, hey, let's embrace your roar. What is your radically orgasmically alive reality? And if we have to touch on some physical abuse, emotional abuse, financial abuse, sexual abuse, spiritual abuse, energetic abuse, you know, all that kind of stuff, then hey, you picked a good person, because I have 20 years in that specialty.
So now I can attest to your energy on this, and that you're practicing what you preach, right? So the day that I met you, like I you know, as a video producer, I did a little research before the shoot. Like I went to the website and I read a little bit about you, and I know that you're actually a licensed psychotherapist, psychiatrist, psychologist. I don't know which.
Licensed psychotherapist, doctor of psychology.
Yes, that. But the energy of you in the room, like I was on fire the entire shoot, the entire conversation. That's my favorite part about what I do, is that conversation, that energy back and forth. And like when you left, I was just on fire for the rest of the day. I was roaring all up and down the place. And it was like, yeah, I mean, no, it's wonderful that you can bring that energy everywhere that you go, and that's an invitation to what's possible, and I love that about you.
Thank you.
So you started off as was it a child model?
Well, yeah, I started off. Well, it wasn't my choice. It seemed fun. I loved the helicopter rides to New York City. I grew up in New York, and yes, a child model in New York City. And there was, you know, in front of the cameras, there's one thing going on, and behind the cameras, there was a whole other thing going on. And that was very, very serious and pretty horrific, with pornography and child pornography and,
oh my God.
Yeah, a whole bunch of stuff, and really serious, the worst of the worst. And I saw all that. I was forced to participate in all of that, and told people about it in my childhood, and they told me basically that I was lying. And so I grew up from a very young age believing that what I saw, what I knew, what I perceived, what I sensed, and actually what I went through was a lie. So I'm kind of surprised I'm not schizophrenic at this point. Why I'm not, I don't know, but thank God I am not, because I definitely am doing what I can to change that for within myself, and for, you know, the many, many people that I've worked with and been blessed to work with, and continue to be blessed to work with all over the world now, thanks to Access Consciousness, for these 20-something years. So like I lived that life, and it was not fun. It certainly wasn't what I consciously chose, but I certainly on some level made a choice to shine light and shine this roar on this topic. And if I can do it, you know, I get empowered and impassioned by stories of people, you know, really looking at these horrific scenarios and then changing their life. And I figure, if I can be that for one person or a million people, how does it get any better than that?
Yeah.
And really, you're the invitation. You're really the invitation of that. I mean, it's really kind of neat for me looking in on it, how, you know, classically, my understanding of the world of psychology, and when we go through psychoanalysis, it's generally, you know, we look at the heaviest thing, right? We look at abuse, whatever that is, and like, let's define it, and let's figure out everywhere that it occurred, and let's look at all the pieces, and then let's dig up everything that you have blocked out, and then let's open every single wound, and let's do all this really kind of nasty sludging through the muck, and with this sense of like, and maybe we'll somehow come out the other end like cleared and healthy and happy. And yet you're just continuously adding salt to the wounds and re-injuring, it seems. And so it's like you have come from this more traditional model, and now you've kind of transformed even that into something lighter. And you're saying, okay, so look, you are all that you are now with whatever has occurred, and what would you like to create from here? And as the abuse pieces come up, all the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions that have created limitation, based on that reality of this happened and now this is my only choice, or now I don't have choice, or whatever, being able to address those things and really get people into this space of like, I'm not a victim, I'm actually a creator, and I actually can create. And when I don't have the confidence that I can do it, you step up as the invitation to say, well, and look, I've chosen this, and why can't you as well? What would it take for you to choose something that will work for you, just like I've chosen whatever works for me? So when you're going through this process of going from sort of a more clinical background and into using these sort of unconventional tools of access, what was that process like for you as you started to make that shift in your work, in your practice, and even in your own process?
It's a great question. The funny thing about me, which is not going to be surprising to both of you, and maybe not to your listenership either, is that I was always pretty irreverent and out of the box anyway. So even I knew how to work this reality. So I knew this reality operated by, and even my clients told me when they searched me out 20-something years ago, I wanted to find the most expensive person with the most education. And so I really got as much education as I can and as I could back then. And really have to say that the education and the richness of it was that it actually saved me in a large way. I found myself I was a voracious reader of every self-help book around. And I went through a master's of counseling program. You have to go through your own therapy. I did 3,000 hours so many different times I can't even tell you about an internship. I was in one of those internships with a two-way mirror, and I had wonderful supervisors that would tap on the window, every 15 minutes when I was making $30 an hour, and 10 of that or 15 of that went to the institutions, and I would conceptualize with my supervisor what was happening every 15 minutes in my sessions. I got expert training. We were audio taped and videotaped, and I had to watch myself in front of 100 people, audio taped and videotaped, as they did too. And you would hear things that by just listening and being schooled this way about what you were doing. And sometimes it was a big joke during those days of like, oh no, Lisa, don't say it. Don't say it. I know where you're going. Don't do it. But I did it anyway. And, and you're like, oh, and you just like cringe when you're watching yourself on video or hearing yourself on audio. But I have to tell you, I have always been guided. I've always been guided, and my education was that guidance. And really, I started really dabbling out into the energetic field when I went for hypnotherapy certification, and then some shamanic practices over in Mexico, and then theta healing when I had when I was diagnosed with Graves' disease, that the doctors wanted to take out my thyroid and some other organs. And I said, they gave me 3 choices, none of which seemed light or right for me. And I said, there has to be another way. And the endocrinologist told me that there wasn't. I said, I'm going to find one. And then I went to the Theta Healing Institute, got my master's in Theta Healing. And within 3 weeks I didn't have the Graves' disease anymore. I had other things that I was figuring out through my body. Naturally, when a disease presents itself in one system of the body, it didn't just attack that system, it came from somewhere else, right? So I had to go back in and change and transform all of that through that modality, and I did that in naturopathic means, and I still have that thyroid, and that system works very well today. If I listened to that doctor and not listen to myself, there would have been a different story here today.
Right. Just a quick side note for our listeners, those of you who didn't take a moment to do the math there, a 3,000-hour internship, if you did that 40 hours a week, is 75 weeks of an internship. I mean, this is the level of dedication that we're looking at here in a professional who's chosen something. And I think that's it's mind blowing for me. Like there's the what's that book? The Outliers, that you've got to be 10,000 hours into something to be an expert, considered an expert in your field. And I mean, how many times over would you be considered an expert at what you do? It's just mind blowing. I mean, your story, changing yourself and being that for other people. When, before when you said if I could change one person's life, it'd be its success. And I know that you've done that. because friends of mine have gone to your classes and have come out transformed from it. And thank you for that.
Oh, nice. Yeah, really. I had been to many different practitioners in many different modalities and very high degree level people. And there was a couple of times that I walked out like feeling really, really horrible, and like they really didn't get me at all. Like it's almost like you can perceive the air, that, you know, your hand go right through them like air. And I never wanted to be that practitioner. I'm not saying that they did either. I'm just saying that I had a dedication that I knew if I was going to actually commit changing my life and creating my life, I needed to be so present, and that nothing anybody came in with, I couldn't somehow grasp from even my own knowing, but my own experience. And not to say that I had to go through everything to do this. It was just like, I just made that demand of myself that I didn't want really anybody to walk out of my office feeling like unheard or left alone or worse off when they walked in. Now, there are some hard sessions, you know, that I've had over the years, but mostly I have been able to really dedicate myself to changing and transforming lives the way that I would like and have changed and transformed my lives, because it's important and it's possible. And I think the more we listen as practitioners with our two ears and use our one mouth, you know, intermittently, the better we'll all be. And I don't pretend to know more than anybody that walks into a group with me, a class with me, or a session with me. But I know that no matter what, at this point, I know that no matter what anybody ever asks me, or whatever country I'm in and whatever language they're speaking, even if I don't understand the language, I can present a different possibility for them to make that, what I call 1 degree shift. Because, you know, if you're on a boat and you make that 1 degree shift nautically, you make a huge change in your life. It's like an earthquake, if you will.
Yeah.
And then creation, actualization, generation is full of possibilities, and you're teaming with possibilities at that point. And that's really all that I'm asked after. And, you know, that's what Roar is. Possibilities.
Now, you were talking about your journey, and what kept showing up in what you were sharing with us was your body, and how you were listening to your body, and how you were bringing your body into this process that you were going through. And can you talk to us a little bit about how, you know, from a psychological perspective, usually people would say like, okay, so it's talking and listening and we're going to work it out, you know, all up here, right? And yet when you're incorporating your whole body into this 1 degree shift, can you talk a little bit more about, you know, your process and how you work with people incorporating the body, or just share with us more about using the body as you know, just another team member and working together?
Yeah, I think it's great. Well, you know, our head is 10% and our body is 90%. Our reality says live in your 10%, but we have this other 90%. So what do we do with it, right? So what I did for myself and what I do for my clients is I always ask, if they come with a pain or an intensity or a disease, I ask in all of my body classes, or even in Embrace Your Roar or a taster, I said, if you have a particular disease that you've been diagnosed, please ask a question about it. Because I spent a lot of time in San Francisco in my practice there, when I was living there, working with a lot of different diseases and diseases that people were diagnosed with, and undoing those points of views. And therefore, subsequently, not all the time, but I have a pretty high success rate in if someone's diagnosed with something, undoing that diagnosis and living free. I know how to do it myself, and it worked for me, and I can present that possibility to people. So the first thing and the key is, if wherever that pain or intensity is in your body, is I always ask the same question. You know, I try to make it really easy. If your body could speak, and if your body had a voice, what would it say? And I was just, you know, I have a radio show too every Tuesday on Voice America, Beyond Abuse, Beyond Therapy, Beyond Anything. And somebody just called up and just yesterday and said, you know, I have all this inflammation going on in my body and my knees hurt and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, you know, if your body could speak, what would it say? And the whole thing was my body's angry, inflammation. It makes sense, right? So if you were actually listening to your body's anger, what would it be angry at you about? And the person reflected that the body's angry that it's not listening to it. It's not eating the way that it would like to eat. It's not doing the exercise that it would like to do. It's not being around fun people. It's not, you know, all these different things. And your body is a sensorial organism. It has a consciousness of in and of itself. And it actually knows what's lighter and righter for you than your mind, because your mind has all this circuitry, programming, if you will, maladaptive schemas, whatever you want to call it, that you filter through so many other people's realities that you're not even sure that you're choosing from your own reality. But if your body gets involved in it as this tool, weapon, and possibility, you can be like, ooh, body, what's light for you? And ooh, body, that's kind of heavy. I'm going to ask some more questions about that. But if that's light, I'm going for that, right? And see, and even as I'm getting like all into it, it's like bodies get happy when they're acknowledged. That's the orgasmic part. It's just the acknowledgement. Oh, you're talking to me. You're listening to me. You haven't heard me for decades. I'm here.
Yeah.
Hercules,
Well,
Hercules.
and I can imagine that, you know, especially with a topic like abuse, where, you know, where I think there's the tendency to disassociate from our bodies or reject our bodies, or, you